All right, Group C. Now, week one for Group C was an interesting one. We got to see Royal kind of evolve a little bit, have a slower pace of gameplay. There were a lot of comfort from them in how they wanted to play the map. It felt a lot slower, but when they were able to open up the map, they just looked for kills, and you got to see the old RNG a little bit. That was nice to see from them. Meanwhile, you got to see Samsung Galaxy. You got to see G2 come in regular form, I would say. The form we kind of expected them to come from their own domestic regions. And you got to see Fenerbahce with God knows I don't watch that domestic region. I don't watch Turkey. But I do know Crash and I do know what style he brings to the team. And you have Frozen who is just a great laner, great player. So this should have been a pretty competitive group, and it was seen as the group of death. I mean, if you were looking at Group D and you're like, that's an interesting group. If you're looking at Group A and you're like, that's a top-heavy group until after week one. At that point, you're like, I guess C9 is the top. It's not EDG and SKT. Um, but definitely the most competitive group would be Group C because you had the Kings of Europe, you had the world's finalists, the runners up of last year's Worlds. And you had Royal Never Give Up, that was the runners up of Spring LPL, Summer LPL finals, and they were just looking damn good. And so what happens? What happens? What happens? I didn't even talk about Fenerbahce, but I'm not going to talk about what I don't know. What ended up happening in week one was Royal stomped Samsung. Royal out teamfucked G2, and they came in 3-0 with some surprise, but to me expected. And that's when I'm gonna bring up my my prediction on that one. Bam. That's right. So this one I felt like was an easier group to kind of touch on for me at the very least because I had a lot of faith in RNG coming into the tournament. They had the superstars of, and a lot of people, even touching the superstars point, a lot of people will talk about RNG and say, well, what happened? What changed from last year? Of course, full Chinese roster. And the players they brought in, the rookie of Ming and Let Me, who wasn't a rookie, but didn't get his time to shine really. They were amazing replacements, and you saw stronger communication from the team, from the lineup. And Uzi really tempered himself. He was a patient AD carry. You're not seeing him jumping in on highlight plays, on highlight reels. He had a lane dominant approach, and he came in and joined the team in being able to set down the vision. You'd like to see that happen. Enjoying the team fights in a non-risky way. You didn't have to chase Uzi. Uzi was following you. Enough about RNG, because now the focus starts to move towards the teams that are trying to chase them. Samsung and G2. Now get this out of my screen. Get this out of my face. Samsung and G2. G2 coming into this, especially going into week 2, especially going into tomorrow. They really need to express their strengths in. They do a good job at showcasing the strengths of Sven in the bottom lane. Sven and Mithy, they come into international tournaments and they always showcase their strength. That's fine. What they do need to do though, they do need to come in there and showcase Perks' strength, Trix' strength. If Trix is coming in as the strongest jungler in EU, and a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, Brox is a very strong jungler. And wait a minute, Max Lower has showcased himself to be a really damn good jungler as well. Maybe even say trashy, but no. Trick, split after split, season after season, comes off as an aggressive jungler, comes off challenging the jungle matchup. And though this may not be his strongest meta, he would much prefer to be a carry jungler than a tank jungler. Or at least that's when he starts to really shine. He's still a smart jungler, but when it comes to international play, you start to question his builds, you start to question his positioning, and sometimes the pixie, especially when he goes towards a few new games, but that's in the past. We don't want to talk about that. But we do need to see real trick. We do need to see the trick that we see in domestic play. And so that's my focus on G2. But a lot of it, or at least a lot of my eyes, will now be on Samsung, which had a really bad week one, specifically coming into their approach to the game. Now I would think this meta would favor them because, you know, a lot of it is a team fighting meta. Samsung has been a strong late game team fighting team around Crown, back when he was known as the Victor player. The top lane, I would say carry in a sense because Kuve was an incredible Gnar player, split pushing that top side of the map, which just goes towards those outright carry builds. But he was an incredible team fighter because it doesn't matter if he was on a Maokai. It didn't matter if he was coming in as a Nautilus or even as the Gnar with his incredible Gnar ultis. He would perform. And though a lot of people will be pointing to Khan as the best top laner in the tournament, I'm pointing to Kuve as that best top laner. Most experienced top laner, though Khan has been around, not in this stage, but also as the best team player. Because we've seen Kuve consistently perform in team fights. We see him consistently play to a Samsung identity, which means that if they need a tank out of him, he'll play a tank, and he'll play it damn well. We've seen what he can do on Maokai, and people will be like, Maokai potato champion, dog champion, whatever champion you want to call it. No mechanics champion. No, he showed you need mechanics. If he's getting dive, 1v2, 1v3, you're going to have to do a goddamn good job, or you're probably going to lose your life to him. So Kuve, to me, undoubtedly best top laner. And then a close second, Khan. And then from that point forward, I'm not going to have a debate on that. And then you look to Ruler, a strong AD carry. Don't need to say much else than that. Very strong AD carry. Always comes into international events, showcasing that he can be top 5 AD carry on an international stage. Moving to the mid laner, I haven't even talked about Crown, who has always been one of the best mid laners in the world. So they have talent. I don't even need to go across the lineup to say that they have talent, but the problem is they come in with weird WA-esque strategies. And we saw that in their loss. We saw that in their loss, their perfect loss to RNG. RNG, a team that's going to outright output not so much early game aggression and stomp you in every lane, try and snowball it. Snowballing is not their tactic. But if you're going to give them every winning lane, they'll take every winning lane. They'll take the winning jungle matchup. If you give them just winning everything, what's stopping them from taking it? They're going to take it. Samsung, at times, showcase that they don't really show much care for lane priority. And that did change when they went up against Fenerbahce. They learned from that. And you love to see Crown be on his Talia. We just need to see that a lot more often. And quite honestly, we just need to see ambition on the roster, on the Rift a lot more often. Because although Haru had a great Ezreal play, that game probably should have gone to Fenerbahce. Because the strategy fell off. If ambition is not on the lineup, it really does feel like the level of strategy, calm play that we talk about with Samsung isn't there. So even though, as I bring back image number 3, as it's called on my OBS, even though I have Samsung taking second, they're 2 and 1. G2 is 1 and 2. Very easily, they can come out and G2 can claim that spot. And if Samsung come out with their poor drafts, or if they come out with Haru, and if Trick does show up, have a strong performance, or even just an average performance, just not the performance in which I've been looking at, then I believe that G2 can, and I will say easily, overtake Samsung. Because Samsung won't win a game versus RNG. Samsung will have to play respectfully versus Fenerbahce. And if Ambition is playing, then he's a smart enough jungler to be able to deal with Crash. And they will be able to get over Fenerbahce. But the main game they have to worry about will be up against G2. And G2 is always that anomaly. We don't know what they're gonna prepare. Hopefully, it isn't the Ivern pick, but I think that's gone to pass. But yeah, we'll look towards that Samsung versus G2 set game. Can't say set anymore. It doesn't work here. And I will say my final prediction, because I might flip flop from this stance, because this was pre week 1, will be Royal Never Give Up keeps that first place spot. And I will say that Samsung will also keep their spot. Even though I've sown a seed of doubt, I will still say that Samsung has the better players, specifically Cuvée versus um, Expect in the top lane is a mismatch. And even though Expect has had good play domestically, not good enough. And Cuvée, if he has a strong a strong top lane matchup, can take down Expect. And even if he just has an even to losing matchup, he will exceed expectations going to these team fights and outperform Expect. So there are just mismatches across the board in that one. Um, so yeah, that's my take. I was wrong with my Group B approach, mostly in the Gigabyte Marines and how they would play. Maybe I'm wrong this time around. We'll have to see. There's no reason to believe that Samsung will fall.